Before we begin, I wanted to give a huge shout out to the folks at Amazon Music for partnering with us on this episode of the Inside Line F1 podcast. But more on this later. Right then, let's get right into today's episode. Well, then. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The time is here. The 2024 Formula One season is back. So are we on the Inside Line F1 podcast. I know we never quite left because we had so many big events, so many big guests on the podcast. But still, I think for the first time in how many months has it been, guys, since we've recorded together talking about Formula One? 2, 3? How long has it been, Sundaram? I think it's been a while, right?
I think we've done an episode very recently. I can't seem to remember which one, but it's definitely been a while since we've actively done this. So I'm very excited for 2024. Lots of interesting storylines, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's good to be back.
Lots of interesting storylines and lots of controversy because in this episode, you're either going to be falling in love with our predictions or you're going to be heading on to Twitter. Can't say Twitter anymore. God damn it. You're going to be heading on to X. You're going to be heading on to X and saying, oh my God, these guys absolutely are crazy and don't know what they're talking about. But that's the fun about the bold predictions episode, right? Because when we did this last year, Kunal, some of our predictions were so stupid, but they worked out well at the end of the day.
They did, and it was actually the most consumed episode of the season, as popular as even the award. So literally the top and the tail of all our episodes were really well appreciated, and that's when we said, let's do a bold predictions for 2024 as well. Let's see which ones we get right. Let's see which ones people laugh out to us on. For me, I know you said Twitter and then you changed it to X. It's that same Bombay, Mumbai. Twitter is an emotion. X is what people expect you to call it, but I just say Twitter anyway.
It's so weird, right? I've seen so many journalists say when a certain person reported something on X, it's like, X, what X? What do you mean by X? It's sort of weird. I don't know why they do it. It's absurd. Just call it for what we all love it to be. But I think just like X, I don't think we're going to get used to V-carb or steak, kick, Sauber, whatever. What's that stupid name again, guys? Wait, is it steak, Sauber?
No,
F1
it's
team.
Steak Formula One team, Kick Sauber. Not Kicks Sauber. Kick Sauber, yeah.
But why do you want to kick Sauber? Wait, that's going to happen anyway, right? They are
That's
going
going to
to
happen
be.
anyway. Yeah. I know that's very strategically placed. That's for sure. That's for sure. They knew what they were doing.
What a stupid.
And then what will happen? What will happen in 26? Audi, kick,
Formula One.
steak, F1
Oh,
team, Sauber.
I like that. I like that idea. You know what? That's a good one. Yeah. And apart from that, we also have the incredibly majestic, the name that everyone is going to remember forever, a name that will stand out in history as one of the most iconic and pretty names in the world, the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls team, VCAR. What is this year, guys? Seriously. It's
Says the person who addresses the Force India Formula One team as Sahara Force India Formula One team. I need to go through his bank records to see if Sahara actually pays him to say the word Sahara, because almost nobody called it Sahara Force India F1 team. But here's the hack. Everyone's been wondering what's the name of the team, what's an actual name of a team, and so on, right?
yeah.
Always check the email address of the team, because that will always be the actual name of the team and not all the sponsor names that are fighting to also be in the title name of the team, right? So Visa Carb, whatever is Racing Bulls F1, I know because I've had a few emails exchanged there. I think Steak is still Sauber, if I remember, or something, or maybe they've just changed it. But yeah, just check the email address of the team. And you don't need to know someone there. Sometimes even the media address, media@whatever team.com is good enough to give you a guess.
So 2024 then, what a year it's going to be. It's going to be a year of stupid names, and it's going to be like an episode of Wipeout. So much comedy around the usual suspects like Alpine, Haas, Stroll, Sargent, so on and so forth, doing their thing and falling like normal people do. But some dark horses like Piastri or Ricciardo, we feel, could shine further, but ultimately reach their ceiling. However, a few fan favorites like Leclerc and Perez might be smacked in their face, but ultimately, I get a feeling that champion is going to be the one who you expect it to be right from the start of the episode. What do you think about this, guys? So let's just put it out there. World champion of 2024, who's it going to be? What's your bold prediction?
It's not bold anymore. It's going to be Max Verstappen. It's very unlikely that we don't see Max Verstappen taking the trophy at the FIA gala later this year. It's Max all the way for me.
I know you're a Max fan, Kunal.
I'm not a Max fan, because then the minute you say that, everyone thinks our reporting is all over the place. I'm just a fan of his talent, much as I've been a fan of, Lewis Hamilton's talent or Sebastian Vettel's talent. I think if there was ever a driver I was a big fan of, who I would, stand on the road and defend at 2 a.m. in an icy, minus 15 night, it would only be Michael Schumacher, right? But I think I'll put it this way. There are only two drivers I'm not a fan of, that all our listeners, including the two of the current drivers, who I'm not a fan of. One is somebody who prefers to take a stroll and still hits the barriers, and the other is a fake sergeant in the United States Army or whatever you call it. But
Really?
I think it's going to be Max Verstappen. It better be Max Verstappen, with all the dominance and the planning and Adrian Newey, and that's going to be the best way for Red Bull to push back on all the rumors around a rift within the team and power struggle and all of that. How do you prove all of them wrong? Just go out and win everything you can. There are 24 races and 6 more if you add sprints. How many out of these will they win? Can they win? And
that's bold prediction. That's going to be the bold prediction. Out of those 30 races, how many is Verstappen going to win on his own? I say 24. Ooh. I think he's winning 24.
Man, you ruthless soul. I for once was thinking this is
I'll be more logical. I think somewhere close to 20. He's winning 20 events for sure. At least.
Okay.
Out of 30.
Out of 30, yeah.
That's not a maxish number, right?
Yeah.
Because he has to win 28 out of 30, or 33 out of 30 if you want to go a max number.
You don't have many repeats. You don't have many repeats of 2023. 2023 was an outlier in terms of dominance. It's not going to happen this year, I feel.
Challenge accepted. That's what Christian Horner and Max Verstappen would say.
Exactly. And wait, no, really, it's an interesting question, right? Because when we were speaking before the start of this episode, Sundaram, you said that Red Bull will be having only 2 other teams alongside with them on the top step of the podium. It'll be McLaren and Ferrari. I get a feeling that it's going to be the same, but with one more team, Aston Martin. I feel Fernando Alonso is going to win one random race and potentially then head to Mercedes. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would definitely be fun. See, you know what I did last year? So throughout 2023, I went by what happened in preseason testing. I went by all the rumors and all the hype around Alonso winning a race. And I followed that trend, kept saying he's going to win a race, and he didn't win a single race. I'm going to do the opposite this year. Quite obviously, I'm an Alonso fan, you guys. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I'm a very openly, I state that very openly that I am an Alonso fan. But I'm going to go the opposite route. I also think it's slightly logical, but I say Aston Martin's not going to be winning a race this year. If Fernando does, then nothing like it. I would be celebrating like I've never celebrated in the last 15 years. But I think it's going to be a Red Bull, McLaren, and a Ferrari merry-go-round this year.
Wait. You're not doing it well enough. Go ahead.
But you saw what he said. I don't think Aston Martin's going to win a race this year. Okay, and then he switched to saying, if Fernando Alonso does, then I'm going to sell, which literally means Lance Stroll is not winning the race. Come what may. If Aston is winning, maybe that's the bold prediction, right? Aston will win, but Lance will not make it to the podium.
What's bold about that? What is bold about that? It's
Aston
like saying...
that's not bold, right?
Water is wet. Yeah, it happens. But you know what? Let's go to Aston Martin. Let's go team-wise, right? Let's go for all of our bold predictions. And I get a feeling, going to Aston Martin this year, that yes, Fernando will win. And I am really, really manifesting this well enough, because it would be the most insane moment in Formula One for the last 10 years. However, I get a feeling by the midpoint of this year, Lance Stroll's lifetime contract at Aston Martin is probably going to be cut short. If they don't realize by the midpoint of this year that they've had enough, which I think they will, because I get a feeling looking at the way the design has evolved. Again, I am not a designer. I can't tell if those barge boards or side pods are actually better than last year. But you get a sentiment around the team that now that they have a better position in terms of where they were last year and they have a good concept that is working, and knowing the kind of structural changes they've made, maybe they will be able to evolve and build up from that. But keeping that positive sentiment in mind, there will be a point where they realize they need 2 drivers and not 1. And they're not going to sack Fernando Alonso there, are they?
They're not going to
Maybe they
sack
will.
Fernando. Fernando is just going to leave. So, Lance might just get another life line. But you know what? Aston Martin is then going to run out of hiring world champions, right? To have alongside Lance Stroll. That's what's going to happen. They have paid $2.5 million. They're paying $2.5 million in racing fees this year to the FIA. They finished 5th last year. I get a feeling they will be in a battle for P2, and P2 will actually be a 4-way fight in 2024. That's my bold prediction.
Wow.
But wait. A 2-pronged battle for P2 or
No,
a single one?
4-way.
No, but will it be a 2-pronged attack from Aston Martin?
That's not a bold prediction, right? The bold prediction will be, yes, it will be a 2-pronged attack from Aston Martin's end as well, right? But that's true, right? If it's not a 2-pronged attack, then definitely they're not in the battle for P2, and then they will again settle for
P5.
That's what's going to happen. So maybe some of what you're saying is absolutely correct, right? They will somewhere realize, wow, we're building cars there, but we finally don't have a son who can deliver. But I have to do a plug in here for the Otmar Safnauer interviews that we released just a few weeks ago, where he explained so very well how difficult and how challenging it was for Aston Martin engineers to actually give feedback to the owner's son, Lance Stroll. I think that was a really exciting insight that he shared.
Yeah, and we have that video also be out on the Inside Line F1 podcast Instagram page as well, where he's just briefly explained what it's like to manage Lance Stroll. So check that one out as well, in case you like the shorter form of the content. But that's Aston Martin there with us. Why don't we go to a really exciting team for our predictions? Okay, let's just say it out right there. I think beyond the point, we will get to be more used to this. But why don't we go to the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls Formula One team? Well, hey, originality in a name. What a lovely one.
You got it wrong, Somil. It's not called Racing Bulls in the official entry name. It's called RB. And they've categorically said that we are not Racing Bulls. I know they're licensed as, I think, Racing Bulls, but the official entry name is Visa Cash App RB F1 team.
Visa Cash App
That's
RB.
racing. And they're racing with a Toro Rosso livery, just to confuse us even more. Hands up for all of you people who are going to call it Toro Rosso.
I'm calling it Racing Bulls.
Me. It's
Racing Bull's car is now coming to be lapped by the Red Bull racing car or the Red Bull car. My goodness, that's a lot of Red Bull and racing and whatever. But let's see what they say.
So will we call it like the Racing Bulls Lock Halos or Lock Horns? Or the only way to make a Racing Bull go faster is if you show it a red flag.
And that means that the red flag rule that the FIA might finally bring in qualifying, we are waiting to see if that happens, right? If you bring out a red flag, you actually lose your fastest time of that session. That's something that they're saying. But on to Racing Bulls, my bold prediction is, because you probably have done it on purpose or not, so that you don't ruin other people. You actually have then ruined other people's session time, so you just get penalized for that. It's under discussion, and they might. You remember Checo Perez, Monaco 2 years ago. Then again, I think it was Hamilton or
Fernando Alonso. Yeah. Fernando Alonso and Baku.
There you go. Lots of drivers. Yeah. So anyway, my bold prediction for Racing Bulls is actually going to be that Zach Brown will be their biggest spokesperson for the year. Why? Because, every third statement of Zach Brown in the offseason has been the FIA needs to outlaw double ownership of teams, or one entity owning two teams. And he's gone out to explain very logically why they should do that. And, it's very interesting here. There are two things or two teams that F1 had to carry as a legacy that is now becoming some sort of a pain point. The first team, and we'll get to them, is Haas. They just wanted Haas to race because they needed a 10th team around in the sport, right? And then now suddenly Haas is like, okay, but my valuation has tripled and I'm not going to sell. So Haas is becoming a challenge. They're not competing. They're just driving around. The second team is, of course, Alpha Tauri, Toro Rosso Racing Bulls, because there was a time when, again, they were like, we need one more team to race. And Dietrich, you got some money. Why don't you buy a team? And that's the team that happens to be now Racing Bulls. And now suddenly people are like, but you can't have one person owning two teams. Anyway, so Zach Brown is going to continue down this road explaining in different ways, but in the English language, why Red Bull shouldn't have Red Bull Racing and Racing Bulls.
Oh, it's not Racing Bulls. It's Hugo. It's Hugo. Have you seen that, guys? On the side profile of the car, the Racing Bulls very prominently has a gigantic red Hugo. Let's call the car Hugo. And like Sebastian Vettel had that as well, right? Kinky Kylie and so on and so forth. Oh my God. It is the golden era of Formula One and I'm forgetting the names. There's
Luscious
Kinky Kylie,
Liz.
Luscious Liz, and a couple of others. Why not call this Hugo?
Okay.
Maybe Hugo.
Why don't we actually move on to...
I'll stay
Mercedes.
on Hugo.
Okay.
No. I
Okay.
want to say something
Sorry.
on Hugo because Hugo will have 3 owners this year, not 2. Ricardo and Tsunoda will be there, but I just get a feeling this car is going to be driven by 3 people in this season. And I'm not talking about the FP1 young drivers. I just get a feeling there's some chopping and changing happening over here in this whole structure, which I should explain in more depth when we get to Red Bull Racing. But mark my words, 3 drivers racing for VCARB this year, not 2. That's going to be interesting.
Let's take a bet on let's predict how many races into the season will somebody else get a lifeline.
It's going to be Belgium, right? That's where it all is.
Specifically with this team, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think
say
Belgium
8 races.
Zandvoort. Belgium Zandvoort, that's where it normally all happens. What it is?
No, well, Nick de Vries was out by Hungary or whatever. I would say 8 races.
Okay, not bad.
Yeah, they will want to give Lawson away in whatever. We'll see. But yeah, we'll
see.
just bold prediction, right?
Yeah, Mercedes. Mercedes is a good idea right now.
Yeah, I flipped to Mercedes because you mentioned Sebastian Vettel and his car names. And I'm like, is he going to be in the car in 2025 in place of Lewis Hamilton? Does Formula One need more former world champions on the grid for teams to hire, for fans to follow, for the sport to have? Because, Fernando's, of course, said he's going to race till 50. So he's around for a while. Lewis Hamilton is, of course, then also going to say he's going to race till 50. But yeah, my bold prediction, since we are moving to Mercedes, is first, we will see Sebastian Vettel back in 2025. And second, Hamilton will beat Russell and then go all these talks of him losing steam and whatever in 24, just as Vettel did in Ferrari in 2020. That's not happening. This is Mercedes, this is Lewis Hamilton.
Whoa. Why do you say that? Because in my head, this is the year where Lewis Hamilton loses energy with Mercedes, loses steam completely and goes like, well, even though I'm a top athlete, somewhere down below my heart belongs somewhere else. And he'll do his best to suppress it. He'll do his best to make sure that he comes across as being the most professional driver in the world. But somewhere down the line, your heart is somewhere else. And they are paying you $50 million more a year. And they are giving you that beautiful red car you dreamed of as a kid. I get a feeling this is where the relationship, I wouldn't say tanks, but sort of loses energy. And this could be the start of the end for this era of Mercedes. And I just see this coming. I don't know. I could be totally wrong about this. I think Toto Wolff is leaving this team midway through 2026. Now, I know that's a far way off, but think of all the great managers in all the sports. Think of Jurgen Klopp in Liverpool, right? Once you've rebuilt a team once and then made it successful, and then rebuilt it twice and then made it even more successful, the fact that you have to do it the third time sometimes gets the better of you in terms of energy. I think Toto will just have to stick on because, again, legacy. I don't think you leave midway through just when Hamilton's leaving. That taints your legacy like a lot, because at the end of the day, people remember you as being, oh, he was only successful because Lewis was there. He'll try to prove that wrong, and then quietly, slyly, when the new regulations come in and Mercedes hopefully perform well, take his exit. I think it's the beginning of the end, Sundaram. I think we're right where Mercedes are no longer going to be the same team that we think they are.
Exactly. This is the period where the team starts to slide down, or I would say they're already sliding down, because at least during the initial years of the hybrid era, I always used to feel, is this dominance ever going to end? And that's what I feel right now with Max Verstappen. But yes, the last couple of years, they've not been winning titles. They've not been winning races. I am actually going to go a little bit more bold and say that Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes don't win a single race this year. Their final year together. I know there's going to be a lot of frustration internally within the team. I don't know if there's going to be any fireworks between the drivers, but quite clearly they're going through a whole reset in terms of their aero philosophy and everything. They've got side pods. Red Bull on the other side supposedly doesn't have side pods at all, or a different version of side pods. But I, for some reason, feel McLaren and Ferrari will edge Mercedes by just that much. Sure, they can take a couple of P2s and P3s, but I don't see them winning this year, unfortunately. Sorry, Lewis fans, don't hate me.
And you say this while wearing a beautiful black Puma jumper, which is totally the kind of stuff that Lewis would wear as well back in the day.
Hey, disclaimer, I also told you Alonso's not winning. Okay, so I don't see Alonso and Hamilton winning. Let me be absolutely clear about that.
Okay, so where are we putting Mercedes in the championship order? I think P4.
Fourth.
Same. I don't think they're
P4,
going to be there. Yeah. What do you think, Kunal? Mercedes 4th? That's like a dagger to their heart, no?
Will be so. I mean, they've changed their concept and so on. They paid what? $3.35 million for last year's performance of P2. Does it matter who's, as long as there's a, battle, 4-way battle for P2, I don't really care who finishes where. It got settled in Abu Dhabi last year. But I get a feeling Red Bull, of course, Red Bull's going to win, but I get a feeling Mercedes will not be P2 this year as well. I think it'll be P3. But I also feel Lewis might just win a race this year.
Just going back to that point, Kunal, you said you think Red Bull would win. Did you mean the Constructors' title?
Yeah.
Okay, this is where my prediction comes in. I have a feeling it might not be Red Bull winning the Constructors' title. Because see, last year, I know everyone's been talking about Red Bull being the most dominant team. But if you look at the numbers, it's actually Max Verstappen who's been leading their charge. Max Verstappen was actually leading the second placed constructor after every single race. So the person that actually led them to that title was Verstappen. Sergio Perez, in a year where he had more opportunities to score, he had fewer DNFs, but he actually went on to have fewer podiums and fewer points than 2022. He had 20 points lower in 2023 in supposedly the most dominant car ever. And Max Verstappen had 130 points more. So if Sergio Perez doesn't pull up his socks, I have a feeling it really gives the likes of Piastri, Norris, Hamilton, not Hamilton, I would say Leclerc and Sainz to come a little bit more closer, give Red Bull a run for the money, and probably one of them even clinches the Constructors' title. I have a feeling that could be possible.
I want to also add up to this, because this might mean that Sergio Perez gets sacked halfway through the season. I get a feeling no matter how bad Red Bull Racing are with Sergio this year, and no matter how... Actually, let's put it this way. I get a feeling that no matter how bad Sergio Perez is this year, even if McLaren and Ferrari are closer to the Constructors' Championship than they've ever been before, I don't think they're going to sack Sergio Perez midway through, for one clear reason. They don't intend to have him in the car next year, very clearly. And so they would want to accelerate, ideally in an ideal world, Red Bull would want to accelerate this process and get their future candidate in the car immediately. But that next candidate belongs to Williams for the full season already. For the first time in history, I get a feeling that Red Bull might have to stick with the driver even though they don't quite like their performance. Because if they bring in an interim solution, maybe a Liam Lawson, maybe they promote Daniel Ricciardo, ultimately they could end up losing out on the golden boy who is best suited for that seat in the long run, Alex Albon. No matter how bad Sergio Perez might be, I think he stays in the team till the end of the year, no matter how things go.
No, I think
that's also
that could
contractual.
happen.
Yeah, I'm saying Checo Perez sticking on is also contractual. Getting rid of him mid-season is just going to be a lot of money that's going to have to be poured down the drain, etc. All of that, and a lot of clickbait journalism will actually put that. Just as a lot of them have also, put $50 million to Lewis Hamilton. I'm pretty sure it's a lot more money than $50 million for the year, right? But I just get this feeling that at the end of the day, this 2023 to 24, no driver changes for the first time in history. Let's just do a count. How many driver changes could we see in 25? So Hamilton's moving, Carlos Sainz is moving, right? Albon might move. Ricardo or Lawson or Tsunoda might move, right? Somebody in Sauber might move, right? Somebody, Haas might just move someone because when cars don't perform, they just drop drivers, right? Alpine might see somebody moving. That's 7 teams. Did I just count?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of driver movements for next year. Remember, before you buy any driver merchandise this year, it might just be the last season when you can wear it.
You were saying, Sundaram?
Yeah, but back onto the point with Perez, you were right. I don't see Perez leaving the team, and I feel Red Bull might have to tweak their strategy for next year. Sure, there were talks about who do we have in the car alongside Verstappen? Do we have Ricardo? Do we have someone else? I think that second seat might go most likely to an Alex Albon or maybe Liam Lawson. I don't see Ricardo getting back in that seat once again. Also because Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari, which means I already feel Ferrari is going to be one of the strong contenders for 2025 in the Constructors' title. So Red Bull would be wary of that, and they would think, okay, let's have someone a little bit more capable, someone who's proven himself in a different car. So that's why I think they're going Albon for 2025 and beyond, or maybe even 26.
I think they're going to get Carlos Sainz for the same reason that the driver who actually scored 50% of all the points at Ferrari is being replaced by a driver who scored, Lewis Hamilton, clearly going to score a lot of points as well. I think Carlos Sainz will finally get his shot at Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing. And that would be a dream reunion. That's my bold prediction. I guess we've already started to talk of Red Bull, so that's my bold prediction for Red Bull. They paid $7.45 million for their dominance last year. RB20, Max Verstappen, that will definitely be the talk. But who their driver for 2025 will be the biggest talking point for Red Bull. That's going to be the boldest move that they will make. I think they will not have a car problem, but they will continue to have a second driver problem. And that problem will aggravate, like Somal was saying, through Checo Perez in 2024. I know we have a lot of listeners in Mexico. Sorry, guys. Checo Perez has to probably find a seat elsewhere in 2025.
Wait. So you said something about $7.5 million for their dominance. What are you talking about? The entry fee. How does it work out? Can you tell the people more about it?
So the entry fee is what every team pays the FI. Everybody pays the FI for everything. We are not paying anything, luckily, because podcasts are for free, right? But what happens is there's a base.
One sec. They'll fine us. We've said so many bad things to MBS. They are going to be sending an invoice. I heard somewhere.
Yeah. But we've not actually spoken of the FI, but let's do that anyway afterwards. But this thing of the entry fee, there's a base fee that every team pays, which means there is a guaranteed income that the FIA gets from every team. And then every point you score, you pay an extra amount of money. So technically, Red Bull could have, after clinching the Constructors' Championship, not scored points if they wanted to save money on paying the FIA. But, there's a lot more money to be made, and you're just paying, the FIA what teams would consider as loose change, just that it's a lot of loose change that's going the FIA's way.
And that, my friends, is how MBS buys the crispest of suits so that you can go to the most amazing awards shows and then utter some absolute horseshit. That's what happens. That's how the entire cycle works out. Let's go to FIA right now that we're on this subject as well. Because you, Kunal, you had something to say about MBS, because I remember when we were prepping, we were all discussing our points. Okay, what's our bold prediction for the FIA this year? And for some reason, it's the same prediction that we've had for the last 3 consecutive years. And it still is as relevant as it was the first time we said it. What is it?
Yeah. Mr. MBS is going to continue to make a fool of himself, unfortunately. Right. And I'll tell you why. Because Andretti has been denied entry in 25 or 26. So he's taking that, of course, as a personal attack to the FIA and maybe to himself, right? Well, if I say personal attack, it's first to himself and then the FIA, right? He's yet to strike back. He will strike back. If you guys know, everyone who follows me on Twitter, I've been keeping a score of where the battle lines lie. And I think it's 2-1. 2 to FOM and 1 to FIA. So I expect MBS to strike back. Let's hope it just settles rather than he sort of drags the FIA down, another foolish joke. Because his tenure at the FIA is not being remembered for governance, but more for, poking his nose in places where he shouldn't be, if that's the English phrase I can put it as.
Wait. But if you are a racing driver and you no longer go for a gap that exists, you are no longer a racing driver. Have we just cracked it? Have we just rationalized MBS's arguments and his stupid statements here and there? Well, we shall see on that. But on the FIA as well, I think this year, everyone is going to forget Andretti. Everyone, but not us. Because back in 2021, people forgot the infamous missile strikes in Saudi Arabia. But we on the Inside Line F1 podcast didn't. In 2022, people forgot about the stupid sandwich paper that got stuck in Alonso's brake ducts, but we didn't. However, same with Andretti, people have already forgotten that whole fiasco a couple of weeks down the line. But trust us, on the Inside Line F1 podcast, we are not going to let this one go. We keep the battle lines drawn in, and we never, ever forget these things. I think along with Andretti, there are going to be so many other stupid things that the FIA are going to do that we will remember. Like the 1,100 track limits infringements that were potentially recorded in Austria. We are not going to forget. And my bold prediction is that this year, track limits is not a problem that gets solved anyway. It will continue to persist. And I get a feeling, Sundaram, when we come to Austria, mark my words, minute 5 of the Austrian GP preview on the Inside Line F1 podcast, the main talking point is going to be track limits. I can already mark my words.
How is that a bold prediction? I don't get it. Because in for me, that is a 3-letter word that we tend to use in the corporate world. It's called business as usual. So there's going to be debates on track limits, but I have a little bit of hope in the FIA because they tried out an AI-based system in Abu Dhabi where supposedly they were able to make decisions a lot more quicker than they did previously. But the whole discussion around track limits is going to continue in Imola, in Austria, and even in Qatar. So that's not a bold prediction. It's business as usual.
Well, what can we say about the FIA? But I get a feeling that along with the FIA, there's going to be so much more as well to watch for in terms of absolutely crazy stuff, which brings us to Alpine. Okay, let's take a second, guys, to frame our thoughts, because with Alpine, we really have to. Let's take a deep breath in. What's the first word that comes to mind for Alpine in 2024? I'll go with you, Kunal. Don't say Otmar, because, again, that'll be a bit too shameless one of a plug that we should do in a minute. But what's the first word that comes to your mind?
A famine of points and poles and podiums and wins, if that's the word I could use, right?
Nicely done.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you. But I predict that there will be a driver change here. Alpine will need a star driver. They have so many star investors. Suddenly, I'm sure the star investors sit and say, guys, we are hanging out with all these drivers at the races. But who's Ocon? Who's Gasly? Why can't you get a Vettel? Or why can't you get us a Hamilton? You know, it's like sitting in that Force India boardroom when Sahara Shri said, the late Sahara Shri. Why can't we get Adrian Newey, you know? So I get a feeling Mick Schumacher might just find himself back into Formula One via Alpine. He's anyway driving the hypercar category with them. What will happen to Ocon or Gasly? I get a feeling they're, again, in this whole driver change thing, they will find a place somewhere else to go.
Actually, I have a similar opinion on that. I just look at Alpine this year and I feel that if they really have intent, this is probably going to be the last year of either Gasly or Ocon. If they really have the intent. Because either of those two drivers will get frustrated with the team and they'll voice their concerns. And Alpine, being Alpine, will have to kick out one driver. And we already saw signs of it emerging late last year with Gasly and Ocon. We saw something similar, remember, at Alpine with Alonso as well, where he was best friends with Ocon until the end of the season when it all started to burst. And when it burst out bad. I think something similar is happening. This could be the last year of Gasly or Ocon at this team. And if they really have the intent, it'll not be the driver leaving. They will kick a driver out. But again, if they have the intent.
This is before they kick another manager or a management person out, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's always going to happen. 2 year has to be like the limit, right? You can't have a year without kicking out 2 senior managers a season.
Yeah,
that's not.
And they will continue to say we don't want our engine equalized, but we agree that our engine is down on performance.
Yeah, Alpine. But wait, what about you, Sundaram? What keeps you engaged about Alpine this year?
Nothing really. I have only one question. Who's the boss? That's my only question. I know Kunal answered it in a way, but I think this team has a lot going on internally as well. So I really have no predictions, no expectations. I'll just take Alpine as it comes this year.
Okay. Let's see. But let's go to a bigger and better team, right? The team that really excites us a lot more. Is it time for Ferrari, guys? Is it? Yes.
Only after 10 years or 27 years with Mercedes, it's finally time for Ferrari. And that's the dream I've been dreaming of, right? So it is time for Ferrari. They paid an exact $3.33 million as an entry fee to the FIA. There's a reason why I'm keeping count. And I missed saying this, right? When we were talking to the FIA, can you guys guess the number in millions that the FIA will get paid only in entry fees in 2024?
50, 40, something.
You expect so much money to be made by the FIA?
Yeah. No, because even the drivers pay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. The drivers pay for super license fees. But I'm only talking of the team entry fees. Maybe that's a good point. We should do, the next time we talk, we should do driver super license fees as well.
But still, what's the number?
$24 million in just entry fees for the 10 teams, right? And this is not changing the fact that the new rules into effect, a driver can maximum be penalized $1 million for any infringement and whatever and so on. It was quadrupled or something. But either way, going back to Ferrari, my bold prediction is that this is no longer the clumsy Ferrari as we've known it. I say this even though they put up an Instagram reel, and it was on Twitter as well, of a pit stop. They called it Poetry in Motion. It was a 3+ second pit stop, and they fumbled on the left front. This was purely for the optics, but they still didn't do a proper take. Okay. But I say this because, they of course had really fast pit stops last year. So this is just an anomaly. But I think what Frederick Vasseur is putting in place out there is different than what most other managers did. Frederick has come from the outside. All the other previous managers who got sacked were all grown up from the inside of Ferrari itself. They're onto something, is what my bold prediction is.
Yeah, I agree. I think this year Ferrari are going to be P2 in the team. However, I think they're going to be even cleaner than we've ever seen them to be. Because I get a feeling that this year, Ferrari will win a race on strategic merit. And we look at them and go, hang on a second, is that the same team that I've loved for all these years? But my bold prediction is not that. My bolder prediction is that the guy who ends up winning that race and also finishing ahead in the championship between their two drivers is actually going to be Carlos Sainz, who will end up make Ferrari look extremely stupid this year. Because you don't let go of the guy who gave you your only race win last year. He's like a cockroach. No matter how much adversity you throw at him, even if it's a nuclear bomb, no matter if your teammate is Max Verstappen and he ends up smoking you away, you still bounce back. And that's what Carlos Sainz is going to be doing. He's going to be raising his stock. And I get a feeling when he wins, he will go mad, Sundaram. He will celebrate like an absolute maniac, like he's never celebrated before, with a vengeance, with a purpose. He's going to be like, hell yeah, that's what I can do. And that is my bold prediction for Ferrari in 2024.
No, I definitely see Sainz going rogue because that's what is also my prediction. But I don't know if Sainz is going to go to that extent with the celebrations. You're absolutely right. He was the only person to win a race last year apart from Red Bull. And I don't think there was anything that was performance related why he was sacked for 2025. See, you have to vacate a driver, your seat for a driver like Lewis Hamilton. So he's going to take it badly for sure. And I think there will be instances this year in qualifying or in the race where he disobeys team orders, like Bottas has done at Mercedes or Barrichello has done during his time with Braun, or I don't know if he did that in Ferrari. But I think that's definitely happening this year. He's going to be like, no, I'm not sitting in this car next year, so I can do whatever I please.
Wait, do you think he'll disobey or he will actually set the team orders right? Because that's the kind of stuff Carlos Sainz does.
He'll
right?
set the team orders right. He'll set it right.
Well, that's Carlos Sainz and that's Ferrari. Where are we putting them in the championship, guys? P2?
I would say so. Yeah, P2. There we go. Wow. Sundaram's video is thrown up a victory sign. Maybe that's the victory coming in. But I think Carlos Sainz, so long as he finds a positive cockpit, and I really hope he's not ignored by some of the top teams, especially if Red Bull and Mercedes have a seat available each and he doesn't make the cut. That would be a bloody bad surprise for him. And, as much as he would hate it, but he would find a position on the Ferrari strategy wall, the strategy team on the pit wall, if he so wanted it, given that he can call races out so well.
Exactly. So P2 for Ferrari, great. I like it. A team that we've all got so much of passion towards. A team with an incredible livery finally. And let's go to a team with... I don't feel any emotion anymore. What is Kick Sauber? What is this team? What's this? Firstly, how terrible are the graphics? Come on, you're a Formula One team. Up your game. How terrible is that livery? It is so simple, so plain. And worst of all, how bad is that name? Steak, Sauber, Team, Kick. I get a feeling this year, Steak or Kick or Sauber or whatever you're going to be calling them this year, pick your call because even they don't know what they are. I get a feeling they'll be the least spoken team of 2024. And 90% people won't even remember their full name by the time the 2025 season starts because we will never see them on TV apart from a crash or a retirement or just Joe finally beating Bottas. Nothing else is going to happen. Why do people even care about this team?
And just to build on that, in 2026, they will be called Audi, which means Steak is spending so much money on calling a team by its own name and Kick and whatever. And I think Steak and Kick are the same brands or owned by the same people, right? Imagine all that money and suddenly 2026, ladies and gentlemen, here's Audi joining the grid in Formula One. I pretty much don't think Audi is going to say Steak, Audi, Kick F1 team in their first season in the sport. They want people to know that Audi is participating in Formula One, not Steak, Audi, Kick F1 team, whatever. So imagine all that money for all that branding only for 2 years or less than that, because pretty much halfway through next year, everyone's going to be like, Audi's coming, Audi's coming, Audi's coming. That's what's going to happen.
I exactly know what they're going to call this team. It's going to be called in 2026 Audi Kicks Sauber Formula One Team Steak. Didn't land.
Not bad. Not bad. What do you mean didn't land? that land.
Perfect.
That's perfect. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think there's no reason to remember them at all. But if we had to go for a bold prediction, I get a feeling this year Zhou Guanyu beats Valtteri Bottas because he's been improving consistently. We have to make one bold prediction. So why? I mean,
okay.
They're not nobody's going to remember it anyway. So I might as well go crazy on this.
I think Joe is going to leave Formula One, be forced to leave Formula One at the end of the season. That's my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too.
And Steak, whatever, Sauber, let's just call it Sauber, will have a new driver in 2025. At least one new driver.
Maybe Carlos Sainz. We'll see.
That would be a horrible demotion that I wish never happens.
Seriously, I mean, leave the guy at least one big seat. He deserves it. Come on, F1 teams. Look at it in a more positive light. But in the same way, I get a feeling that this year could also be even bigger and better for Williams. Because now finally there is some positive intent towards them. They have a team principal who's setting things right. They have one young driver who's really proving all the wrongs right. And I get a feeling they'll be in the P6 in the title. They'll be somewhere in that battle. And they do get a couple of top fives this year, courtesy not of Logan Sargent. That's not the bold prediction. Courtesy of Alex Albon. They really are, I get a feeling this year, going to have a car that's far more rounded, and Alex Albon will drive it further on. However, it's going to be like George Russell in 2020, or 2021 rather, I should say, where one of your drivers is going to have such an incredible year that he ends up leaving the team. And your other number two driver will actually end up scoring, I don't know, a bigger result first, but you're just left with no big driver to build upon at the end of the season. That's what I feel their story is going to be this year.
Yeah. Alexander Albon leaving, that pretty much is going to be the most expected and the bold prediction. And at the launch, Albon almost gave it away. Everyone asked, are you here for the long run? He's like, I'm thinking 2024. Of course, because if he gets an opportunity for 25 at Red Bull, or Mercedes, he will go, right? And especially, I think Red Bull, because the Ueda family has been backing him since his go-kart days, and they own 51% in Red Bull. They wouldn't want a driver who's matured to suddenly go away and race for competition. So I get a feeling that Carlos Sainz, of course, has shown the potential on track at Ferrari at different teams, but Alexander Albon has the Thai backing, which is where that's going to go. But above all else, my other bold prediction is Williams finally won't have a slippery car. So all the high-speed races where we say, let's see what Williams does, might actually not see them do too well, because they'll build a car that does better at more circuits rather than just a few circuit configurations.
So I think Logan Sargent is not going to be scoring points, at least in the first half of the season. That then leads him to vacating that seat. And Williams then accommodates Kimi Antonelli for 2025.
What?
Yeah. I think that's happening.
Seriously?
I see that happening. Because
I mean, how good do you think the kid is? Seriously.
So he's rated extremely highly in the junior circuits, and the reason why I think Mercedes is going to take a little bit of time to announce who drives with them in 2025 is they really want to see how Kimi does through Formula 2. It's his debut season, but there's also already been a little bit of signs that he is the big deal. He is the real deal, similar to Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton during their rookie years. So I feel he is destined to race alongside Russell at some point in time, but they probably wouldn't want to rush him. So that's why they put him in a Williams with Alex Albon. Give Fernando Alonso, Mercedes gives Alonso a 1+1 year deal, and then Kimi takes the seat whenever he's ready to take it.
I love how we've literally pressured a driver who's only driven in Formula Renault till date, which was last year, right? He's skipped Formula 3, very bold. I personally would love to just see, even in Formula 2, if they're going to try and get him to make a switch, he has the first 7-8 races to make an impression. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of settling in that he needs to do. There's a lot of quick drivers in Formula 2, including Kush Maini, including Victor Martins and several other drivers. So I get a feeling Antonelli is probably going to do 2 or maybe even 3 seasons in Formula 2, at least, before he makes it to Formula 1. Because it's to get him into Formula 1 is easy because Williams is, for example, going to get paid to have him. But it's also about how, if you get him too soon, are you going to kill the driver's confidence and, the ability to sort of settle in and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually does 2 seasons in F2. A lot of Antonelli is just media hype, media talk. I know Karun Chandok said he's been the best driver in F3 since the last best F3 driver, which was Max Verstappen. I'm sure all of that holds great when we talk and we sort of explain why Antonelli is so special, right? But I get a feeling that maybe there's a Mick Schumacher that's going to go back to a Williams, if at all, rather than a Kimi Antonelli. I mean, Kimi Antonelli, if he has to make it out of Formula 2 and go into Formula 1 next year, he needs to win Formula 2 races, and especially in the first 7 or 8 races. If he's able to win, put things on the podium. And let's remember who he's up against as well. He's got Oli Behrman, the Mercedes, the Ferrari Junior as well. So lots of benchmarking that's going to happen at all times. At this moment, I think it's just purely for conversations that people are just saying Kimi Antonelli, but I don't think he's going to make it there in 2025. My bold prediction, even though Toto Wolff is probably hoping otherwise.
And I tell you what, though, I do like the idea of us discussing these young drivers and understanding where they could stack up. Because my bold prediction for McLaren this year is that their young driver, Oscar Piastri, will consistently outperform Lando Norris by the end of the season. Well, folks, McLaren are getting better. My bold prediction is that McLaren need a driver who can't just break the biggest trophy of the weekend, but can also win it. In crucial moments like Qatar qualifying, Lando Norris hasn't delivered. Again, it was similar for Max before until he evolved, but I get a feeling on that development curve, Oscar Piastri has an edge in the mentality side of things. He seems sharper, he seems tougher, he seems harder. Maybe it's his upbringing, who knows? But that is what I feel will help Oscar Piastri outperform Norris by the end of the year. His toughness. He'll learn quicker, he'll outperform Norris, and by the end of the day, I think he's going to be the future star of that team, not Lando.
I have a slightly different view.
Mm-hmm.
That view matches your view for 90% of it. I think Lando Norris will continue to be the star at McLaren. But you know why? Because Oscar Piastri will be poached at some point very, very soon, right? The reason why I say this is both the McLaren drivers have a long-term contract. My bold prediction is that at least one of them will not honor that contract. They will find a seat elsewhere. Let's remember, Lando could still be pulled out and brought into Mercedes if things don't look good for McLaren early part of the season. So lots of performance clauses, exit clauses could come. And after a point, it's just a piece of paper. If money, exchanges bank accounts and teams and whatever, you never know. Because Mercedes is also going to look at a star driver to replace their star driver, right? They're not going to just put any driver in there. Even though Toto Wolff has been advocating for other teams to hire Mick Schumacher. He's not going to put Mick Schumacher in the car when he's suddenly got a vacancy out there, unfortunately for Mick. But that's my prediction.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Soumil as well. I'm not sure if Oscar's going to outperform Norris or he's going to outscore Norris, but I definitely think Piastri is going to get a race win before Lando Norris. And for those very same reasons that Soumil mentioned. He's very calm, composed, and is able to deliver under pressure. We've seen that with the sprint race last year as well. Where was that? Qatar? Or was it
Qatar? Yeah.
Qatar, yeah. So I definitely think if he finds himself in a position to win a race, I think he's going to do it before Lando Norris. That's my bold prediction.
Yeah, I just think so as well. I think he's got what it takes. And at the end of the day, right, as you start to go higher up the ladder, it's not your raw pace or it's not how you construct a race, but can you deliver when it matters the most, when you have only one chance, where all the variables around are only perfect for that one opportunity? Can you nail it at that point? And Lando Norris consistently has failed at that. And now I'm not criticizing him for that because remember, Max Verstappen did that too at the start of the 2020 season. And then I remember, Kunal, you and I had this gigantic discussion where I was just confused. Like, why are you calling out Max Verstappen when he's getting pole positions? But you said at crucial moments, I still see him making mistakes. And that's something he worked on and made himself better at. If Lando is to be the world champion that we all think he's going to be, that next step has to come this year. Otherwise, there's a big driver in that opposite car who's really going to be schooling him once he gets to that skill and understanding level, which could be very, very quickly.
No, there's something I saw on the internet yesterday, and this is a stat that's not come from me. Supposedly, Lando Norris is the first driver to not win a race in his first 4 years with McLaren. I don't know how accurate this is. I have to go back and check this, but supposedly that's the case. But you could also say that McLaren weren't that good back in 2019. They were slowly going upwards from 2020 onwards, but supposedly that's a stat.
Yeah, quite clearly. And let's see, this is the year where it all is made up or broken up for McLaren. But last team that we have to go to is the most forgotten one, Haas. Guys, I have a question. What is a reason for anyone to be a Haas fan in 2024? There is no common passion. There is no broad vision. There is no aggression. I'm not going to copy the Angry Rant Man, but still, there's no real reason. There's no character in that team. There's no broad winning mentality. There's no higher targets that they're chasing. And the only source of entertainment in the entire Formula One grid, and the only reason why people were Haas fans, is because the entertainment that Gunther Steiner offered is now also gone. And they're not even a proper American team, so that's another less reason to follow them. And they're not also incredible, and they don't have a real big underdog story because this underdog never wins. So why do you follow Haas? It's like if on a buffet you were served up, and again, I'm talking about people who do eat meat here, but let's hypothesize, right? If you were given sushi, sausages, pasta, pizza, and mashed potatoes, why would you even look at the mashed potatoes unless someone told you, hey, buddy, there's a really spicy mashed potato sauce that you can have with it that'll make it go extremely crazy and your head will pop off. And that's when you say, I like Haas. I like the mashed potato with the spicy sauce. But now they've taken away the sauce. So why do you want to eat mashed potatoes on that table? There's no reason to follow Haas. Why do they exist? Why are they here?
They are here so that the sport looks really bad when they keep denying an entry to Andretti. They are here so that Andretti finally purchases a team rather than starts a new one, I would guess. But no, on a more serious note, I think I've been a fan of Nico Hülkenberg because I go back a long way with him through Force India. That's probably one of my reasons to, sort of support the team. I remember when I saw Williams' launch and I read Komatsu on the side pod. I'm like, why is Haas's team principal's last name on the side pod? I think that's what we're going to remember Haas in 2024 for having the name of a team principal on the side pod. And yeah, maybe let's see what they do. I think they're also going to have a driver change in 2025. I don't think Nico Hülkenberg is going to stick around for too long. I think he will be taken up, especially if Audi is eyeing him and so on. They might just say, just bring him on now rather than waiting for later. That's my bold prediction. Can we be bold with them? Will they be last?
Yeah.
Yes. Will they continue to do Ferrari, customer deals? Yes. And like I explained in the legacy, they've just been there because, hey, you were with us through the tough days, so we will take you through along when the sun is shining, kind of thing.
Who even knows? Well, any predictions for you for Haas, Sundaram, before we finally wrap up this episode with the FOM very quickly?
Like you mentioned, there's no real reason to follow or like Haas, but sometimes when they are able to deliver in the most difficult circumstances, you really become a fan of the team, just like what Kevin Magnussen did in Brazil 2022 and Nico Hülkenberg did in Austria during the sprint. He was extremely good in that Austrian GP sprint. So I think Haas could steal a point in a sprint race this year. I think that could be possible.
Okay, That's my bold prediction. Haas will continue to build a car that goes quick over a sprint distance and not a Grand Prix distance, right? So it's the 6 sprints where Haas is really going to win a lot of fans, not the 24 Grand Prix.
Let's see. But guys, let's finally wrap up with the FOM, right? Because we have to cover them as well. What's our prediction for them this year? I really don't know. I'm totally blank about how ostentatious they can go. But Sundaram, what's your prediction for the FOM? Formula One, that is, Liberty Media.
Another street circuit. One more street circuit, because we don't have enough street circuits in Formula One. So let's have more of that. I was actually doing a little bit of research around this whole Formula One's obsession with street circuits. And the fact being, we've not had a permanent racing track or a permanent racing facility turn up on the F1 grid after 2012. We've not had a new permanent facility debut in Formula One. Yes, you would say probably there was the Losail track and everything, but those were built back in 2008. So quite clearly there are fewer permanent facilities in F1 nowadays, and F1 is going the whole street circuit route. Bring Formula One to the fans rather than the other way around. So I think there's going to be a couple of more street circuits, but please not in the USA.
I think it's going to be a 25th race that will be announced at some point. We know Liberty Media is lining that up. Thanks to external factors like climate change, like the war, like to various reasons, we've actually never had a 24 race calendar. So if we have a 24 race calendar this year, which seems more and more likely, right? They will work on announcing a 25th one. most likely a street circuit is where I guess, which means we are just going to get even more busy as the season goes by. But how ostentatious, how much louder can the Las Vegas Grand Prix get is also going to be something that we are going to be looking out for this season. I think it'll only get that much louder. They would have fixed the manholes, which is a great thing, but that's just where it's going to go with Liberty Media. I think it's become, they've realized that their efforts, Drive to Survive, etc., has really brought in newer audiences. We don't care if they're trolls, if they're lesser known people, but these audiences are thronging the circuits. Circuits are seeing record attendances. Budget cap is helping teams become actual business entities. And this is their time to milk the money. So that 25th race is coming, and maybe it's going to be in the United States of America, a fourth one.
I like that you said that the budget cap is helping teams become business entities, rather than saying that the budget cap is getting the grid closer. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because clearly that's not happening.
Yeah.
Clearly that's not happening.
That's not happening, yeah.
No, but I'll put it this way. It's slight disagreement here, because despite the budget cap, Aston Martin made the 22 to 23 jump, and then McLaren did the whole 23 thing, where they started bad and they ended up really good. Now, what everyone is really hoping for, and this is my best point left for the 60th minute, I hope people have stuck around for, can any team do what Aston Martin and McLaren did in one season together with the budget cap in place? So you make such a big jump, and everyone's anyway going to keep saying, the rules have been around for a long time for convergence of performance to happen. We'll keep hearing these big terms that we'll literally get to see in Bahrain in qualifying, not in preseason testing.
Yeah, exactly. I think, if anything, it's not going to be Alpine. So keep an eye out on that. But if you want to know why teams are facing troubles making those big jumps because of the budget cap, well, we had Otmar Safnauer on the show to tell us exactly that. So make sure you check out that episode, which is a two-part special, where Otmar has told us so much more about his Force India days and also why Alpine didn't work out. But folks, those are our bold predictions, and we'd love to know yours on social media as well. Reach out to us on X or Instagram or whatever your platform of choice might be, and we'll be sure to respond to you and discuss more of that in depth. Thank you so much for listening and watching, folks, and we shall be back with more very shortly. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Inside Line F1 podcast. Before we ended, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Amazon Music once again for partnering with us on this episode of the podcast.